You tried the bulk and you just ended up getting fat. Your waist went up, you felt softer, and you didn't quite look the way you expected to. And the most frustrating part about it is that you feel like you did everything right. You ate more, you trained hard, and you did it all to build more muscle. So why did this happen? Why did you gain fat instead of muscle? It's because most people don't actually understand how to control a bulk, which leads to weight gain and not muscle gain. If you're new here, I'm Steven. I'm a physiotherapist, a lifetime natural lifter, and someone who's been training for over 25 years. In this video, I'm going to break down the biggest mistakes that most people make when bulking and show you how to fix them so your bulk actually leads to muscle growth and not just weight gain. Let's break it down step by step. The first problem is that the calorie surplus is just far too aggressive. When most people start a bulking phase, they just assume that they need to be eating significantly more than they are currently to put on muscle. And this just isn't the case in the majority of situations. Your body can only build muscle at a limited rate. Building muscle is a slow, regulated process. It depends on your training stimulus, the amount of recovery you're getting, the amount of protein you're eating, and being in a slight calorie surplus to support muscle growth. Once those needs are met, consuming additional calories is only stored as body fat. More calories does not equal more muscle growth. When your weight is increasing too quickly, you're not accelerating muscle growth. You're just increasing the proportion of that weight that's coming from body fat. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. They see the weight scale going up and they just assume that the bulk is working when in actuality, they're just putting on additional body fat. The second problem is that the training doesn't match the new energy surplus. A lot of people increase their food intake, but their training stays exactly the same. They're using the same weights, doing the same amount of reps, and they're putting in the same amount of effort. But if your training isn't progressing, there's absolutely no reason for your body to put on additional muscle. Muscle growth is driven by progressive overload. If you're not giving your body a reason to grow, it will just stay the same. And this is where a bulk looks very different than a cut in practice. When you're dieting, your goal is to maintain your strength and performance in the gym. But when you're in a calorie surplus, you now have the energy and resources to push yourself harder. You should be trying to increase some combination of the weight and/or reps on your lifts in every single session. Now, just to manage your expectations, it's not realistic to expect an increase from session to session, but you should see some kind of improvement from week to week. If that's not happening, those additional calories are not being used to put on muscle. So even if your calories and nutrition are set up perfectly, if your training isn't providing a strong enough stimulus, you can't effectively direct those calories toward where you actually want them to be going, your muscles. The third problem is that there's no real control over the bulk. Once people decide they're bulking, it's like all hell breaks loose. Calories aren't being tracked consistently, body weight isn't being monitored, and there's no clear target for how quickly your weight should be increasing. So instead of a controlled, slight surplus, they end up in a much larger surplus than they realize. And this is where things start to fall apart, because if you're not tracking, you have no feedback. You don't know if your intake is appropriate, you don't know if the scale is going up too quickly, and you don't know when adjustments need to be made. And over time, those small inaccuracies compound. A few extra 100 calories here, a few extra 100 calories there, they end up adding up to a much larger calorie surplus across the week. So instead of gaining weight at a controlled rate, you end up gaining weight far too quickly. And as you can probably guess by now, that weight isn't coming from muscle. And the issue here isn't just the calories themselves, it's not having a system to keep things in check. The fourth problem is the psychological shift that happens when people start a bulk. Instead of seeing it as a structured phase, they see it as an opportunity to relax or fall off of their diet completely. And this is where things can get really dangerous, because if the mindset shifts to, I can eat whatever I want now, food choices become less intentional, meals become random, and consistency starts to slip. And this is something I've personally struggled with in the past, and it escalates fast. Even something small, like slightly going off a plan, can turn into, well, I messed up today, so I might as well just keep going. And that's where this all or nothing type of thinking starts to take over. Because now, instead of a controlled surplus, you have days where your calories are way higher than they should be. And those days can add up and be very damaging over the course of a bulk cycle. And when you combine this mindset with a lack of structure and tracking, you end up in a position where the bulk is no longer controlled at all. At that point, you're not really bulking anymore, you're just putting on weight. Once you understand these common bulking problems, they become much easier to fix or avoid completely. So let's talk about how to bulk properly. The first thing that you need to fix is the size of your calorie surplus. Instead of drastically increasing your food intake, you want to be in a slight calorie surplus, just enough to support muscle growth, but not so much that you're rapidly gaining body fat. The goal here is not to gain weight as fast as possible. It's to gain weight at a rate that actually reflects real muscle growth. This means aiming to gain around 0.25% to 0.5% of your total body weight per week, which in most cases works out to about 0.25 to 0.75 pounds per week, depending on your size. If you want to be safe, I would just try to aim for about half a pound per week. In practical terms, this usually means being in a 200 to 300 calorie surplus and not much more than that. If you really want to push it on the higher end of things, you can go as high as 500 calories, but don't push it beyond that. Otherwise, you're just going to put on unnecessary body fat. And if you're not sure what your maintenance calories are, the easiest way to figure this out is to track your body weight and your intake for 1 to 2 weeks. And if your weight is staying stable, that's your baseline. And this is where expectations need to be set properly, because that rate of weight gain is going to feel extremely slow. You're not going to see dramatic changes from week to week, and this is where a lot of people will start to think that the bulk isn't working. But in reality, that slower rate of weight gain is exactly what you want, because it allows you to stay leaner and actually keep a higher proportion of that weight gain coming from muscle rather than just accumulating as body fat. From a nutrition standpoint, this doesn't have to be overly complicated. You want to keep your protein at about 1 gram per pound to support muscle growth. You want to keep your fats at a reasonable level at about 20 to 25% of your total calorie intake, and this is to support healthy hormone functioning, and then just fill the rest with carbohydrates to support energy and training performance. But at the end of the day, the success of your bulk depends far more on the size of your calorie surplus than it does on the exact breakdown of your macronutrients. So don't get caught up in the weeds and stress out about this too much. Try to look at the bigger picture. Once your calorie surplus is properly dialed in, the next thing to fix is your training. If you're in a calorie surplus, your training needs to reflect that. You need to put those calories to work by training hard in the gym. You want to gradually increase the weight you're lifting, the reps you're performing, and overall, your performance should be improving over the course of the bulk, because those additional calories need to be directed somewhere. And the way you control that is through effortful training. You need to give your body a clear reason to build more muscle. So instead of just going through the motions, try to progress your lifts every time you're in the gym. This doesn't mean you'll be lifting more in every single session, but over time, you should be getting stronger. And if your strength and performance aren't improving, that's a clear sign that those additional calories aren't being used effectively to build muscle. The third thing that you need to fix is your level of control. You need to have a system in place to manage the bulk properly. That means tracking your intake, monitoring your body weight, and having a clear idea of how much weight you should be gaining on a week-to-week basis. Because without that, you're just guessing. And when you're guessing, it becomes very easy for that calorie surplus to get out of control. So instead of just eating more and hoping for the best, you want to be actively monitoring how your body is responding. By regularly weighing yourself and tracking how your weight changes from week to week, you're easily able to make the adjustments necessary to keep yourself on track. For example, if your weight is increasing too quickly, just bring your calories down. And if your weight isn't increasing at all, just bring your calories up. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And this is where cardio can be incredibly helpful, not as a punishment or to cancel out your bulk, but as a tool to help manage energy balance. It allows you to keep your food intake slightly higher while keeping your overall calorie surplus under control. And that's on top of the fact that it's just good for your overall health, conditioning, and recovery. When you have this level of control, you're able to stay consistent, make adjustments when needed, and just keep the entire process moving in the right direction. The fourth and last thing that you want to fix is your mindset. Starting a bulk is not a free pass to eat whatever you want. It's still a structured phase with a clear goal and a clear approach. You still need to be consistent with your nutrition, your training, and your daily habits. Because the moment you let that structure start to slip, things can get off track very quickly. You need to avoid falling into that all or nothing type of mindset where one small deviation turns into a whole day of poor decisions that can set you back several days. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be consistent. So if something slightly goes off of plan, don't overreact. Just get right back on plan with your next meal, your next session, and your next day. Because consistency over time is what actually produces long-term results. And when you approach your bulk in this way, you have a system in place to keep your bulk structured, controlled, and actually working towards muscle growth instead of just gaining body weight. And that's the difference between approaching a bulk with intent and just hoping it works. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about eating more food and hoping for the best. This is about setting up the right conditions for muscle growth to happen so it becomes the expected outcome. If you found this information helpful, consider liking the video and make sure you're subscribed for more practical information on training and nutrition. And if you want to make sure you're not losing muscle the next time that you diet, check out that video next. Thanks for watching.